Hey guys, thanks very much for watching. My name is Dark Arps, and in this video I want to show you how to synchronize or slave a piece of hardware to Traktor. Basically send MIDI clock from Traktor to, in this case, an Elektron Machinedrum, but it could really be any physical MIDI enabled piece of hardware that can accept clock. And beyond that, I figured out a way to then slave a couple of Teenage Engineering pocket operators to the Machinedrum by effectively creating or recreating a sync pulse out of one of the impulse machines in the Machinedrum and sending it out of one of the assignable outputs, output F in this case, going out into the pocket operator and then cascading that sync signal out to the next pocket operator, and those two get fed back into the recording inputs of the Machinedrum, so that I have this very nice, tightly integrated third deck. Basically, the Machinedrum and the pocket operators become a jammable third deck that I can play with Traktor. So really the first thing would be just to show you how to set up MIDI clock sync from Traktor to send out to your hardware, and that's actually pretty easy. If you go over to Traktor and you go into your preferences, under MIDI clock, you'll need to have send MIDI clock enabled. And then you need to go down to controller manager. And I've already done this, but you need to click add and choose generic MIDI device. And then in the out port, you specify the physical MIDI output that is connected via a MIDI cable to your piece of hardware. So in this case, I'm using a Motu Ultralight, and the Ultralight MIDI port is selected in my out port. And that's all you need to do beyond engaging the send sync function, which is here. So that's found under the metronome icon in the top left. So if I play this track, then I need to make sure that this track is the master. So I'll just set this track to be the master. And then if I hit play on this sync send, you can see that the Machinedrum is now playing. And if I click off that, the transport stops. I click it on again, okay? Now let's go over here to the bass drum channel, and I already have a bass drum loaded, and I can just put, so we're now synchronized, and to prove that we're synchronized, I'm just going to ramp up the tempo of this track, and you'll see that our kick drum stays nicely in time. So we have a pretty solid sync here, which is great. So I'm going to stop the Machinedrum, and I'm going to stop Traktor. So we've established that we have MIDI clock sync from Traktor to the Machinedrum, which is wicked. So going beyond that, I've kind of been obsessed with these pocket operators recently. I think they're just wonderfully inspirational little devices, and they're cheap, but they sound amazing. And you can get patterns and sounds out of these things that I just don't think you can get any other way without a lot of work anyway. So they're really amazing little devices. And I've been enjoying playing with these things alongside the Machinedrum and basically recording them into the RAM record machines and then playing them back using the RAM playback machines. Now before getting MIDI clock sync from Traktor going, I had been manually syncing the Machinedrum to Traktor simply by specifying the tempo and then hitting play at the right time. And if I was a little late, then you can speed up the playback just by pushing the right arrow. It'll kind of shunt it forward as if you were twisting the nipple on a Technics 1200 to speed it up, or you can do the opposite, slow it down just by pushing the left arrow. So I was able to manually sync the Machinedrum to Traktor, and that worked relatively well, but things drift a little bit, and it's just nice to have things really solidly synchronized. But when it came to the pocket operators, you can't do that kind of thing. All you can do is specify the tempo, and then hit play at exactly the right time and hope that your timing was good. And sometimes it's good and then it's solid, and sometimes it's not good and it's a little weak. So, so the challenge was, how do I synchronize these pocket operators? And it occurred to me that the impulse machines in Machinedrum basically make an appropriate sound for the pocket operator to sync to. It really just requires some kind of a timing pulse, and it needs to receive one on every 8th note. So if I just consult the chart, this helpful Reddit article gives us a rundown of the sync modes. If I just put the pocket operator into sync 1 mode, it's going to send a sync signal out of its output, out of I think the left channel is the sync and the right channel is the actual audio of the machine. And then if I go over to my RAM record machine and I have the input level up and Q1 up, we should hear this. There we go. So that's what the pocket operator sync signal sounds like. It's just a sort of a pulse. And over here on the CC channel, I have loaded up an impulse machine, which sounds like this. Oops. It's pretty similar. I mean, it's practically the same sound. It is an appropriate sound to use to trigger the clock function in the pocket operators. So, I loaded up an impulse machine into this channel by going to the edit page and ground synth, ground impulse. And then I had the up and down value set at 64. The issue is that this signal needs to be loud enough to trigger the pocket operator's clock. Now I'm going to put the PO tonic back into sync 4 mode. And I'll put the rhythm, which is the first in the chain, into sync 3 mode. And now we need to make sure that the the transport is enabled. In other words, that play mode is on, which it now is. And it is now waiting for a clock signal. And then it will play its sounds back. So it's ready for a clock. And I have this pulse sound here that I know will trigger the clock. So now what I need to do is I need to route the output of this pip to the output F on the Machinedrum. So if I go into my global and I go to routing, output, and you see it just selects the channel for you, CC, I'm going to change it down to F. So now we're not going to hear it out of our output, but we're now triggering the pocket operators, both of them, in fact. If you can see, the play head, as it were, is moving on both of them. Now, the way pocket operators work is that one pulse effectively creates 2 steps. So in order to send a steady clock from the Machinedrum to the pocket operators, I simply need to set up a trig on every 8th note. And if I hit play, we should get some beats. I'm just going to turn the volume down on these pocket operators a little bit. It's kind of loud. Okay, so we now have the kick drum, which I'm just going to mute. And we've got the beats from the pocket operator. And you can stop the playback of the pocket operators and then bring them back in, and it will just start playback on the next pulse. Okay, so that's just the tonic playing. I'm going to start the tonic, and that's just the rhythm. Okay, so if you've been listening closely, you'll have noticed a problem. And that problem is that the sync signal is basically too late. The pocket operators are late. They are not particularly tightly synced with the kick drum. And this is a pretty major problem. In fact, for me, it's a total deal breaker. I couldn't work this way because it's just not tight enough. So I was scratching my head about how to get around this problem, and I came up with a solution. So this is the solution. What we need to do is we need to record. I'm going to clear the trigs on the CC channel, which currently contains our click track, as it were, our timing pulse for the pocket operators. I need to record one of those pips into a RAM machine, but allow a little bit of silence before the impulse, and you'll see why in a minute. So if I go to my M1 channel, which is currently set up to record from the external inputs, and I'm going to turn that down, and I'm going to turn up the main level. The M level basically stands for main level, and what this will do is it will record anything that's coming out of the main outputs. So then I need to go back to my CC channel, and I need to route it back to the main output. Okay, so we're now hearing our pip, our timing pip out of the main outputs again, and I want to record that into the RAM record machine with a little bit of silence at the beginning. So let's make sure that the length of the recording that we make is appropriate. So I really only need to record a bar's worth. So I'm going to set the length to 64, so that corresponds to 1 bar. And now making sure that our timing pip is going out of our master out and we can hear it. If I hit the record button, I'm going to wait 3 beats and hit my timing pip on the fourth beat. So that's going to give me a nice long period of silence before the sound. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I've now made this recording, and this is what it sounds like. There. So we've got 3 beats of silence before the recording. Okay. What I need to do now is save this RAM recording into a ROM slot so that we can use it again. So under Global, let's go to Sample Manager, and here at the bottom, you have to scroll down to find these RAM recordings. So under the Sample Manager page, you can also go up, and they will be there as well. But R1, we can see we have a recording here. So with it selected, I can copy and paste, just as you do with machines and trigs and all the rest in the Elektron universe. So I've now pasted over slot number 33, asking me if I'm sure. Yes. Do I want to reload the samples now? Yes. And finally, I want to rename this. And I'm going to call it Click, CLK. So there we go. I have a ROM slot with that recording called Click. I can now go over to my CC channel and change it from the impulse to the ROM recording that I just made. So down here, number 33, click, and let's just hear it. There it is. So we now have that recording. What would be useful at this point is just to kind of hear it playing alongside the kick drum so that we know where we are timing-wise. So I've got a kick drum on each beat, and let's go back over to the CC channel, and I'm going to create trigs on the 8th notes. And now when I hit play, we're not going to hear anything because it's going to continually play silence, right? So, oops, of course, I need to make sure that my RAM record machine no longer records from the master. And I just want to right now make sure that I don't have any playback on my RAM playback trigs. So if I hit play, we just hear the kick drum. But on the CC channel, if I adjust the start point, eventually we're going to start hearing that pip. There it is. Okay. Okay, so why would I do this? What is the point of this? Well, as you can hear, by changing the start point, I can offset the timing pip. And that, in conjunction with shifting the trigs back 1/16, will allow me to create a timing clock that makes the pocket operators sync perfectly in time. So I'm going to hit play again, and I'm just going to kind of use my ears and try and get something that's relatively close, but we're going to have to audition it with the pocket operators too. get it absolutely perfect. Okay, that sounds pretty good right there. That sounds like it's in sync. So now that we've got that, I'm going to route this back out to output F, which will trigger the pocket operator. So under global, routing, output, CC goes to F. Now, the next issue that I encountered when doing this is that the pocket operators really need quite a loud signal in order to trigger their clock playback. And I was having a lot of difficulty making this work because the impulse machines themselves create a loud enough signal, but the recordings are somehow quieter. We just don't get as hot a level when we're making these recordings. So the way around this for me was if I just go to the effects page for this channel, and I'm going to turn up the EQ gain all the way and turn the frequency down into the lower part of the spectrum. And this is just going to boost the level. We're not going to hear it, but the pocket operator will. So hopefully when I hit play and these pocket operators are in play mode, they should start playing back. Yes. So you can see the transport, basically the playhead is running across on these pocket operators. We're not hearing anything because I haven't routed the audio into the machine drum yet, but I will do that now. So in our RAM record machine, RAM 1, we're going to make sure the I level is up. We'll put I balance to the middle. And then let's put our length up to 127. It doesn't really matter because we're doing a constant recording and re-recording. It's just recording into the buffer and wiping it over. And then let's make a trig. And then on our M2 channel, this is our RAM playback channel. So there you go. We now have the pocket operators routed back into the machine drum. So now we have the synchronization issue, but I should be able to finesse that by using the start offset on the CC channel. So I'm just going to hit play on the rhythm at beat 1, and we're going to see how far out we are. Pretty far. Okay, it's really, really, really late, but I should be able to finesse this now. There we go. So just by changing the start point, I can get something that's a lot closer. You know, that's pretty good. And then I can try the other one. And so now that I have two pocket operators that are synced to the machine drum's clock, and I have the machine drum, which is synced to Traktor's clock, then I can basically DJ with Traktor and the machine drum and the pocket operators and everything's in sync. So let's play a track in Traktor. We're going to make this the master and let's hit the sync button. So now we have the machine drum in the mix. I'm just going to remove the kick drum and maybe put a hi-hat or something. And now I can start playing with the pocket operator. I can do all the fun things that you can do in the machine drums, filtering and bit rate reduction and all the rest of that stuff. Cool. I hope you found this useful. It's a little tricky to get this going. But yeah, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. And yeah, if you have a drum machine or any other MIDI-enabled piece of hardware, you can integrate it with Traktor pretty easily and add a little bit of extra dynamics and interest in your DJ.